Today we're covering Ishmael's warm, wrath-loving ego, and that is Capote. Ishmael's Capote is one of two Capotes, the first being hers and the second being Merceau's. Hers is a Teth and Merceau's is a he, but we'll get to the latter in a further episode. As I said, this ego is a Teth level. It has a 20 base with a +7 roll. It does blunt damage, has attack with a 2. After attack, all allies gain 1 wrath damage up next turn. On hit, inflict 4 burn, and on hit, do 7 SP damage. So, we got a little bit above average attack with, I suppose, a decent roll, and applying wrath damage up to all allies next turn. Next turn is phenomenal, but it really depends if they have wrath skills, so this could be hit or miss, but if you're running this ego, you're most likely going to be running a wrath team, or, well, maybe you're not, but it's still going to be useful if you have wrath skills. The passive of this ego, Slang Amid Cheers. When attacking a target with less than 30% HP, wrath skills gain an extra 20% damage. Now, if you're pairing this up with Capote Ishmael's skill 3, which thrives on enemies with low percentage of HP, then you are going to be doing a mind-boggling amount of damage, especially if you do it next turn and we have wrath damage up. Holy smokes, is that ever going to be a massive amount of damage. While you could be doing a massive amount of damage, you're not going to be losing a massive amount of SP or spending a massive amount of resources. It costs 20 sanity to use, 2 wrath resources, 2 lust resources, and 1 sloth resource, which is pretty average for Teth, costing 5, but still pretty good. And yada yada, your resistances will change to ineffective to wrath, fatal to slust, and fatal to gloom. What a shame. Now on Corrosion, you're going to be doing a lot more things. Holy smokes, is it ever going to be doing a lot more. So you're going to be having 27 roll with -7 coin, blunt damage, attack with a 4. That is interesting. 4, attack with a 4, that's kind of uncommon. Usually got 3s and 5s and sometimes 2s, but 4s, that's nifty. And you're going to be rolling a 20 at the worst case scenario, so that's pretty good. After attack, give 1 wrath fragility and 1 wrath damage up to all units next turn. Interesting. You're going to be buffing and debuffing your own and enemies. That is interesting. On hit, inflict 5 burn. On hit, deal 15 SP damage. On hit, trigger Tremor Burst, and then reduce the Tremor count by 2. If the burst is staggered the target, then inflict 2 burn on 3 random units. Interesting. A little bit of burn going around if you stagger them, but you're also chewing down the Tremor. So, it's little negatives on that, but mostly positives. Another positive, other than just the word soup that was in the Corrosion, is the drip. I quite like the Capote drip. It's relatively simple, right? But a lot of these egos, when they have simple but effective drip, they go high on my list. And this is no exception. Not only does it look good in the base, but it looks very interesting in the Corrosion. So, I'd have to give that like a 9 on the drip scale. Yeah, pretty high. Now, for the strength. This ego is phenomenal for the strength category, boasting a pretty high base and a decently high roll, although it's not as high as Roseate Desire, but you're going to be hitting this a lot more often than Roseate Desire. I mean, let's be honest. But the wrath damage up to all allies next turn on base and Corrosion, followed by the SP damage, and followed by the extra 20% damage if you're using a wrath skill and the enemy is weak. That is going to be amazing, and that's going to boost it up on the strength category to a whopping 9. The only thing that could be better on this ego is if it had a higher roll, but you win some, you lose some, but this ego is mostly winning. This ego stays winning, even on to my next rating category, and that is the Usefulness. This ego has multiple attack weights on base and 4 on Corrosion. Both of them roll a minimum of 20, which is pretty solid. Both of them roll 27 at maximum, which is pretty decent. It could be better, but it's about the average. And they're also really good for debuffing your enemies and buffing yourself, although the Corrosion also buffs your enemies and debuffs yourself as well, so it's a little double-sided blade there, but Most likely, if you're going to give yourself wrath damage up or use this E.G.O, then you're probably not going to have enemies that use wrath skills. So that would probably help you a little more. And you're doing a lot of burn, you're bursting tremor, you're doing SP damage. All in all, a very, very useful E.G.O. I think this is going to be a 8. 8. The only thing that could be a little better is if it had a better passive and a little bit of a higher roll. That's the only thing I could wish for on this E.G.O. But other than that, it's perfect. Maybe a little bit of count on the burn would help, but it's not needed. So that was Ishmael's Capote E.G.O. A very solid Teth E.G.O, I would have to say, and I would recommend you use it. At least in every circumstance, and unless you're running a team that uses haste or bind. If you want to be faster than the enemy, maybe go to your way, get Roseate Desire, try it out. It's a very interesting E.G.O, and I do recommend it to you, but not as much as I recommend Capote. Well, that's about it. Have a good one.